Welcome back to Tiny DIY and the Deep East Texas project house. And some of you might have wondered where I'm sleeping while I'm on the project. Here it is right here. I did have another air mattress. I had to repair that one as well. But this is a AlwayzAire dual pump air mattress that I got for $8 at a discount store. Don't ask me why. I had one already, but I didn't think it could possibly be that bad. If you want to see the video on repairing this and what kind of glue I used to repair it, make sure you check the links in the video description below. But basically the way this thing works is it constantly keeps itself full. You see when the green light is on, that means it's at an acceptable pressure or inflation level. As soon as it drops down to a set point inside, it kicks on a little tiny like 12 volt little electric motor that just keeps pumping until it gets back up to a set point. And I have had this apart before, and I did find the actual pressure switch in there. So I'm going to show you how to adjust it. I'm going to show you what it looks like, how to get to it, and how to adjust it. And hopefully we can get this to be not as firm, because I'm a soft sleeper. So let's get into it. This is the air switch itself. The manual air switch, that is. Okay, had to plug the phone back in. So, in terms of the manual switch here, you've got two ports there. And we've got the manual switch here with just two simple ports on it. So all of your sealing is actually done in there. So basically you're going to have a suction either coming in one of those holes and then coming back the other hole. And then as far as your actual seal, it's way back in there. Let me see if I can get that. So what's actually keeping the air in the mattress is actually back in there. And that's the problem place on a mattress that doesn't have an actual tear or puncture. It's actually coming out of the fill valve seal back there. And the best way to fix that is to take some compressed air and just like spray the crap out of it. And there's usually just like a little piece of dust or lint on that seal itself. I don't know if this one's leaking from there. I could probably go get a spray bottle and we could tell pretty quickly, but that's not what we're addressing today. Let's take a look at the other components here. You've got your switch here that turns the pump on or off. So that turns the pump on or off. This port dictates whether you're sucking or blowing, depending on which port is lined up with the pump itself. Here's your circuit board. Pretty basic. I'm gonna go ahead and take the rest of this out and it'll be easier to see what's going on there. And I notice a lot of people have actually asked this question online, and there have been no actual responses. So you're seeing it here first on Tiny DIY. I just realized the flashlight's right there, huh? Sorry. Alright, so now this whole thing comes out nice and easy. So there you can see the control board. Here you got your USB port. It's just a basic control port. You got a couple LEDs, transformer, capacitors, pretty basic. So there's nothing on that board that has a pressure set point on it. The pressure set point is actually down back here. Here's your little 12-volt pump that actually does the pumping in quiet mode, and you can see it's just attached to a tube there. Attached to a tube and a little check valve. That little white thing right there is a check valve. Make sure the air can only go one way, and in this case, in. But the part we're trying to get to is this mamma jamma right here. You gotta pull this wire out of the holder there. Pull this holder out. This is the pump motor holder. And here is our pressure diaphragm switch. And it's actually sealed in there. So I don't know if you can catch that, but it's actually, air is actually coming out of there now because it's sealed with this O-ring here. And the way this works, let's see if I can do this on camera. Not sure if you got that or not. But basically, when air goes through here, it activates a diaphragm, which then activates this pressure switch right here. This little, it's a micro switch actually. And so how do we set the pressure point? With this knob right here. So it is screwed in pretty far. We've only got like 2 threads there. So we're gonna unscrew it to get a softer mattress and hopefully less pump run time. So I'm gonna try to gauge how much pressure it is. I mean, if I was back in Arizona where all my tools are, I would have a pump set up, probably use a Mighty Vac and get an actual pressure setting for you here, but I'm just gonna try to feel it out with my lungs. So we're gonna hold this plastic back like so, and we're just gonna unscrew it. Let's go for like, well, it doesn't look like it comes out very much, huh? And that was barely in there. Well, we got a thread out of it. And that might be all we can get there. So the actual pressure is going to be set by, you know, there's a spring in there, but that spring isn't doing a whole lot. I mean, it's a little bit easier now. So I've got 2 options here. Let's see what happens when we take the spring out. There's actually like 2 stages. I'm not sure how well you're getting that. Sorry, it's kind of a hard thing to get. So the actual pressing of the switch is the secondary stage that I'm feeling. Yeah, the resistance of the switch is actually takes more pressure than the spring itself, which is interesting. I guess it makes sense because it's a rubber diaphragm pushing up that, you know, has to come up and actuate this little micro switch there. So we can try leaving the spring out, see what happens, because the diaphragm itself, the issue there is that you want it to reseal. I guess I'm going back to just one turn out. We could cut a couple turns off of this spring, but in all honesty, the amount of pressure it takes to lift that micro switch is actually almost the same as it takes with the spring. And the spring's just acting to reseal it. It's substantially more. Well, we're gonna try it like that. We're basically a 3/4 to a half a turn out, just enough to engage all the threads. Like, it's barely even in there. And let's take a look inside here. So another area you could potentially clean if you're getting a lot of leak down is you could undo these 3 screws, use compressed air to clean out that entire diaphragm. That's another potential place where dust or lint could leak. Also this rubber O-ring seal, and also this entire hose going back to the check valve, going back into the mattress. There's a lot of potential leak points. A lot of places that could potentially keep this pump going longer than it should. And from the reviews I'm seeing, a lot of people are having a pump run continuously. And the only time I've seen this pump run continuously is when it's leaking. So I'm just trying to reduce the pressure a little bit. So as far as I can tell, it's built pretty well. I'm actually pretty impressed with this. And we'll see what a half a turn does there. And if not, I'll come back and follow up on this video and cut a couple, like 1 turn out of that spring. So to put this back in, I'm actually gonna just use my saliva and lick the O-ring. You know, you're seeing my face all up in this stuff today. That'll help seal it into its port back there. Get it up in there. Yeah, there we go. Make sure it's seated well. Put your motor holder back in. That helps fully hold the diaphragm switch. Put our wire back into the wire holder. We'll put the little pump back into the pump place, like so. Make sure that you're not bound on the motor with the tube there. Push that all the way back in, and then we just put it back together like we took it apart. I'm caught on something there. Oh, there's a little slot. We weren't in this slot. Oh, this is much easier to do without a camera in the way, you know? Alright, start it again. There's a slot and a slot. You gotta make sure you're in the slot. There we go. Alright. Now the wire can go in its little wire holder. Funny how I take this apart without anyone watching and everything goes easily, and then you get the whole world watching you. And things tend to be a little bit more challenging. Mostly the camera. I'm used to having my face all up in stuff. Alright. Get all the screws. Feels like we're stuck on something. All the way in. Probably just not in the slot here. Slot. Slot. What are we stuck on? Probably this wire. That's on, that's on. Wire and its holder. Pull the wire up. Make sure you're in the slot. Let's see if the screws pull it back in, because it seems to be fighting me. Okay, yeah, that was way more difficult on camera than it was last time. Alright, we're gonna clean this off real quick. And if you have access to compressed air, now's a good time to clean that out. That's gonna be your primary leak point. Right in there. Like, you'd think it would clean itself up pretty good, but you get little dust and lint on there, and that does it. I'm just gonna go ahead and slip that on in there. And this little lid has to go in first. It gets held in by this thing. Alright, that's the basic gist. So when you turn the switch, it depresses the seal and then switches the vent port to either suck or blow. So before you screw it back together, make sure it operates as it should. I think it's actually designed pretty well. I think they could loosen up that pressure switch a little bit, but that would take redesigning that whole pressure switch. All right, now the moment of truth. And this is kind of arbitrary. It's hard to really see what it's set at. But we'll plug it in. We'll inflate it. So now you just watch it, see how often the pump kicks on now. We are still pretty much at the same firmness, but what I'm more interested in is keeping the pump from constantly working to keep it as full as it thinks it needs to be.